Warren's Astra H VXR time attack car or track car is ready to go racing, I guess. It's not done. Is anything ever done? There was a lot more things I wanted to do, but there comes a point where at some point you have to kind of use the car, and we could keep the car here another 6 months, another 12 months, another 18 months, and there'd probably be still always things that you wanted to do. I think it's easy as time goes by to forget about the things you have done and only really concentrate on the work still to do. And these things probably should always be seen as a bit of a work in progress, really, as a bit of a kind of rolling project. And I think when you try and take on too much all in one go, it can become it can become a challenge to stay motivated to keep working on it, especially when it's a sideline thing. Obviously day to day we're building exhausts and kind of running the business, and this is like a fun side project that we're kind of working on and filming, and that was always the idea, really. It's easy to get carried away with the things you want to do. I mean, obviously a lot of the ideas were mine, and we've accomplished a lot of those. Whether they're going to work as well as intended, I don't know yet. That'll be the test. Hopefully Brands Hatch will be that test. Hopefully the car runs without any issues. But I thought now that it is kind of more or less ready, this is the last opportunity we've got to film before Warren comes and picks the car up this weekend. So I thought we'd roll the car outside and just go over some of the things we've done. So before we kind of set the bonnet up and look in the engine bay, I'd always kind of had the idea that I wanted to do something that was like GT car inspired, really, where like Aero takes Aero's a kind of really big part of how the car functions and how the car actually operates on track. Now, disclaimer, I am not an expert, and everything I've learned off of the internet from people that might not be experts either. A lot of this stuff is trial and error, and if you don't ever actually trial, you'll never kind of figure out what works and what doesn't. So I knew I wanted to do something that was very kind of GT car inspired, and that meant focusing the whole front end of the car around Aero. People tend to get hung up on Aero being things like side skirts, big wings, splitters, and that all is Aero, but there's a lot you can do with just the air that's hitting the front of the car, just in terms of directing it better, making it work better for the car, and also making it kind of push the car down to the ground and reduce drag. So normally the air hits the front of a road car, a lot of it goes around the outside of the car, and a portion of it goes through the radiators, gets sucked into the engine bay, then pushed back out under the engine bay usually, and that obviously works for a road car where you're just looking to keep the radiators cool. But when it comes to a racing car, if you can direct that air and channel it to actually help push the car down to the ground, you get basically free downforce and a reduction in drag, because you're then not filling the engine bay up with air. If you can imagine like holding a plastic bag out of the window, like at 60 miles an hour, you're going to fill that bag up with air, and that's essentially what you're doing with the engine bay. So if you can force that air into the front of the car and then back out over the car, you're like putting a hole in that plastic bag, and then all of a sudden, there's not so much drag. So you can see that's basically what we've done. The air will now go in to the radiator through this front scoop here, and it'll go all the way in and then out through this rear section of the bonnet scoop here, and it's the same for the intercooler at the top. Originally I wanted to use a thinner core intercooler and like V-mount the radiator in the intercooler, which is what's quite common to do, but I quickly realised that probably wasn't going to work, given that the front end of the Astra is quite low, and just with the space constraints we had in terms of like where the bumper is and where the bonnet is, there wasn't that much room. There's actually less room behind this bumper than there is under a normal VXR bumper. So we mild compromise. There's always compromise with these kinds of things, and the intercooler ended up at the top, and I actually think there's arguments as to why that will work better. and it's because we're not confusing the air between radiator and intercooler. You're forcing the air to all go in the same direction, which has its benefits. So yeah, then it all kind of channels up through this letterbox in the bonnet. All the rubber seals are missing at the minute. We've yet to put those on because they're kind of just a last minute thing. Yeah, and in order to kind of create the space to do this, to have this kind of big scoop behind the radiator, and fit a bigger turbo, which is one of the things we also wanted to do, realistically, you've got to move the turbo. Now, I think there's no way you would get that turbo down there between the kind of bulk of the rear of the scoop and the engine block, so it's got to go here. One of the first things we had to do was make the manifold and put the turbo in place, because when you're trying to make this huge amount of change, you have to start somewhere, and that can be the trickiest part, figuring out where you're going to start, and that sometimes means that you end up with a little bit of compromise almost straight away. So in hindsight, I probably would have put the turbo a little bit higher up and a little bit further back, because it gave us some problems with actually getting a large enough scoop in, basically, because at the time I still wasn't 100% sure what kind of width radiator we were going to use, or even what size intercooler we were going to use. And it's one of them where you could build the car 100 times over and you probably would never build it the same way every single time, because you learn things each time. So yeah, we ended up with the kind of turbo at the side, and fabricated really short boost pipe work. That was something we also wanted to try and do. Everything was about efficiency, trying to make everything work as well as it could possibly work without having to trying to make all of the hardware in the car kind of work not hard. We want everything to be at kind of idle, really. If you're constantly pushing the hardware to get the maximum performance out of it, that's when you're going to come into reliability issues. And again, a big part of this car was reliability. We want it to work well, specifically in time attack, you see a lot of people that have like a poor weekend or poor results. It just comes down to the car broke down. The car wasn't reliable enough, so that was something we really wanted to make sure that we did everything we could to make sure the car was reliable. Again, there's still things to do. We want to heat wrap the downpipe, so that's got to come off again, and we're going to get some heat wrap around there. But sometimes when you've made this many changes to a car as well, the reliability thing is kind of hard to work out until you've actually run the car. This isn't like a normal Astra VXR. There are obviously a lot of things that have changed, so we're going to have to probably make some changes down the line in order to make the car more reliable. That's just how it works. It's a kind of constant evolution of the car, really. So there are a couple of things again that if we was to do things again, right now, probably would change. So I probably would change the header tank and breather tank area, or kind of design a bit. We've got everything really compact here, which it works and it's fine, but it's probably going to be a bit of a nightmare to work on if we ever need to kind of change things or unbolt things. But again, realistically, are we going to have any reliability problems there? I don't know. It'll be a case of waiting and seeing, I guess. There are loads of things that have changed on this car. I can't even begin to go through all of them. Some of them you can't even see. Stuff like engine mounts. Obviously, the engine's like an inch lower. That's an easy one to forget about straight away. So it's got all new engine mounts all the way around the car. It's quite a lot of work in that. But the benefits are lower centre of gravity. We obviously raised the turbo up, and we lowered the engine down. The engine is a lot heavier than the turbo is, and it's definitely a lot heavier than the intercooler. So although we have raised some things in the engine bay, dropping that cast iron engine block, crankshaft and rods an inch lower will make a difference. How much difference? We don't know. A lot of these things are very hard to actually measure, but there's a reason why, you know, racing cars, you know, why centre of gravity is, you know, plays a really big part, and it's because, you know, it's been proven over time that, you know, the lower centre of gravity, you know, it kind of lends itself to a car that handles better. Then another thing that we've kind of, that was one of the things we wanted to do, but I knew was always bottom of the pile, was a flat floor and diffuser. So when it comes to efficiency and aero type stuff, a flat floor and diffuser is free downforce. You get downforce at the exchange of no drag. So the rear wing provides downforce to the kind of back of the car, maybe like the kind of rear quarter, you know, maybe like rear third of the car. And it's, you know, it works, but what you have with a big wing is drag, because it's constantly behind the car, constantly forcing the car down to the ground, and it slows you down in a straight line. How much? I don't really know, but I know that it's enough that if you could get away with just a flat floor and a diffuser, you definitely want to do that. So that's something that we might revisit in the future. We did get the materials for it, but just simply run out of time to get the car kind of done before Brands Hatch. You know, we could keep the car here a bit longer, but we've just come to the point now, or I have, where I just need to see the car out on the track. I just need to see it being used, because you do, as time goes by, motivation gets harder and harder, because the thing never seems to move, it never seems to actually do anything, you never seem to accomplish anything. So the car's going to go to Brands Hatch as it is. I'm sure there'll be some things that go wrong. We can fix those things, and then as the season goes by, maybe look at doing some more upgrades. It really depends what Warren wants to do with the car. Again, you can upgrade everything infinitely. You know, I'm sure maybe some of the things that we've kind of upgraded now maybe would be upgraded again in the future. I don't know, you know, because again, it's a constant evolution, and that's how you learn about things. Like I say, I'm definitely not an expert on these kinds of things, but you know, yeah, the way you learn is to go out and do it, and you know, do it rather than just talk about it, I guess. Yeah, so in a few weeks' time we'll be at Brands Hatch. Say rounds 2 and 3 of Time Attack. Justin's going to be there as well, hopefully, in his Astra, and it'll be an opportunity to yeah, watch the cars go round and see what goes wrong and fix them. Maybe nothing will need to be fixed, that'd be ideal, but I don't know, we've done quite a lot of work on this car, and I'm not sure we're going to have time for a test day, so yeah, we'll see, I guess. Yeah, see you there. Thanks for watching.